CBSE Board, Class 11, History, Chapter 3, Part 27, Audio by Rini Matthew. The Night of Tears, that is where we stopped in the previous audio, 600 conquistadors, which means people who conquered in these places. The Spanish conquerors were known as conquistadors, and it was very difficult for them to surpass the might of the Tlaxcalan allies, but they made it. Now we have to see a picture of the Night of Tears. It will be shown in the upcoming slides. Coates was forced to retreat to Tlaxcala to plan his strategy against the newly elected king, Cuauhtemoc. Okay, so new king was elected in the Aztec, and he was supposed to plan his strategy against him now. And Aztecs were already dying from the dreaded smallpox, which had come with the Europeans. They were suffering under them. And with just 180 soldiers and 30 horses, Cortes moved into Tenochtitlan as the Aztecs prepared for their final stand. Only 180 soldiers and 30 horses were there, and they proceeded, the group proceeded for the final stand, because now they have to fight against whom? The group of Cuauhtemoc. Now the Aztecs, they believed, they had this pagan belief, and they could see some omens foretelling that their end was near, that they are not going to win this battle. Because of this, the emperor chose to give up his life. Cuauhtemoc decided to give up his life because they believed strongly in the omens which foretold that they are not going to win this battle. Now the conquest of Mexico had taken 2 years. It was not a very small battle. It was very difficult to wage and also to conquer it. Cortes became Captain General of New Spain because he succeeded in the battle. He was the winner in Mexico, and he was of course showered with honors by Charles V because of his new expedition, and he was successfully able to conquer Mexico. From Mexico, the Spaniards extended their control over Guatemala, Nicaragua, and the Honduras. So now it's like they're giving space to just a portion of the land. Now they were able to get hold of all the other parts of the land just through this. It was like giving space to a camel, right? You must have heard of that proverb where when you give space to the camel, it'll just put its leg or head, but then finally it occupies the whole space. It was like that. The story goes like that. So now Mexico was taken over, and of course Cortes was given a lot of valor and gift by Charles V because of happiness. Now we need to look at Pizarro and the Incas. Pizarro, in contrast to Cortes, was uneducated and poor. When he joined the army and found his way to the Caribbean islands in 1502, he was not like Cortes. Cortes passed away. Maybe he was old also. He was not able to be a part of the battle. The next successor was Pizarro. He was not very good like Cortes. He was uneducated and poor. He had heard a lot of stories about the Inca kingdom. It was a land of silver and gold, El Dorado. He made a lot of attempts to reach it from the Pacific, but it was not possible to reach it from the Pacific. They had to travel and take the route across Atlantic itself. On one of his journeys back home, he was able to meet the Spanish king and show him beautifully designed gold jars of Inca workmanship. So on his way back, he was able to meet the Spanish king also and show what he actually found. Okay, so Pizarro was in contrast to Cortes. That is one thing that you have to remember. The king was very greedy, of course, and he promised Pizarro the governorship of the Inca lands, because Inca, that is under Spain now. So he said, if you're going to get more things like this made of gold, then I will assure you the governorship of the Inca lands if he conquered it. Of course, Pizarro planned the expedition to follow Cortes' method, but he was not successful. He found that the situation was more difficult because the Inca empire was difficult. It was different, and it was difficult to acquire it also. Okay, now they conquered the Arawaks and also the Aztecs. now it was the turn of the Incas. Incas were not like the Arawaks and the Aztecs or the Mayas. It was very difficult. So now, this particular person, Pizarro, was a person who showed the beautifully designed ornaments and gold materials from the Inca land. And the king was very greedy. King was so happy, and the king said, if you're going to conquer this land, I will give you the whole of it. Let's see what happens after that. In 1532, Atahualpa secured the throne of the Inca Empire after a civil war. So Atahualpa is of course a native king of this particular place, Inca Empire, and there Pizarro arrived on the scene and captured the king after setting a trap for him. It was very easy for him to set a trap for him. Of course, as the king promised, he gave him a room full of gold as ransom for his release. The most extravagant ransom recorded in history, but Pizarro did not honor his promise. So the king said, if you're going to release me, if you're going to just let me free, I will give you a room full of gold as ransom. But of course, Pizarro did not let him, because what was promised to him by the Spanish king? The full place of Inca. Of course, he did not go for it. And what happened after that? He had the king executed because he had to keep his promise to the main king, the Spanish king. And his followers went for a looting the whole place. This was followed by the occupation of the country. Which country? The country which was ruled by Atahualpa. The cruelty of the conquerors was at high peak, providing an uprising. Of course, the tribals will not keep quiet. The natives will not keep quiet. It led to an uprising in 1534, which continued for 2 years. And during that time, thousands of people died in war due to epidemics. In the next 5 years, the Spanish located silver mines in Potoso, in Upper Peru, modern Bolivia, and they worked hard to move towards these silver mines, and they also made the Inca people their slaves because they were more familiar with these mines. It was very easy for them to tap these things only by the Inca people. Now we need to look at Cabral and Brazil. Okay, what is this? What are these terms? And the Portuguese occupation of Brazil occurred by accident. Portuguese came and invaded Brazil only by accident. In 1500, a grand procession of ships set out from Portugal for India. They actually headed towards India, and that was headed by Pedro Alvarez Cabral. So Cabral is the name of a person. He was the leader of this procession of ships, and they set their way to India. To avoid stormy seas, he made a wide loop around West Africa and found, to his surprise, what did he find? He reached the coast of present-day Brazil. So when they plan to go to a place, it's not necessary that they reach that place. Of course, they will take another route and reach somewhere else. Destiny will make them reach. Destiny will have something different for them. So as it happened, this eastern port of South America was within the section assigned on the map to Portugal. So this was actually within the limits of what was assigned to them by the Pope. So they regarded it and they thought that they had conquered it, because Pope, the church and the state, they always worked in unison, and they decided to have this place for them, and they regarded it as indisputably theirs, because they always had an idea to invade the eastern part of South America. So they did not say, oh, we found out a place out of error. It was not correct for us to find this place. It is not like that. Okay, they said that we already had plans to find this place, and it was assigned by the Pope to find this place also. So they regarded it as indisputably theirs. There was no more arguments over it, and they of course just took it like that. The Portuguese were very eager to increase their trade with Western India than with Brazil. Of course, they found out Brazil, but already Brazil was in their list. So now they were very eager to set up trade relationship with western parts of India, but they did not promise any gold. Who? Brazil. There was one natural source which they exploited in Brazil, and that was timber. The Brazil wood tree, after which the Europeans named the region. Because of the Brazil wood tree, it is called Brazil. It produced a beautiful red dye, and that is what attracted them most, and they exploited the timber from there because gold was not to be found there. So that was the finding of them. The natives readily agreed to cut the trees and carry the logs to the ships. The natives were easily giving in. They just yielded. They surrendered to the foreign expansion without much arguments or without much uprising. And these people exchanged iron knives and saws. And in return, what did they give? They actually carried the trees and logs and everything and put it in the ship. So in return, the Europeans gave iron knives and saws. The Portuguese gave iron knives and saws, which they regarded as marvels, because iron knives and saws were not in the market in those days. So now it was something of novelty to them. So look at this particular line, which is very interesting. For one sickle, knife or comb would bring loads of hens, monkeys, parrots, honey, wax, cotton thread, and whatever else these poor people had. So all these things were given to them, and they were very complacent with whatever they had, and they got all these things in return. So that is what happened here. Why do you people, French and Portuguese, come from so far away to seek wood? That is one question. Don't you have wood in your country? A native asked a French priest. Why do you have to come all the way from your country to this place to get all these things, to get the wood and everything? At the end of their discussion, he said, I can see that you are great madmen. The French priest said, okay, I can only conclude that you are mad after riches. You cross the sea and suffer great inconvenience and work so hard just to exploit, just to accumulate riches for your children, and just to come here and get these riches and go away. So what a toil you are taking for nothing. You are just doing this for nothing.